everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on the penultimate episode of season 1 of Hazbin Hotel. Ooh, and last week things did not go according to plan at all. Charlie and Baggy were like, yeah, we'll go to heaven, it'll be great, we'll just talk to the seraphs and the angels, everything's fine, and no, that didn't work. It may have made things worse, and now Adam and whoever his main angel there is has decided that they're just going to go to Hazbin Hotel first. I guess. I mean, Alastor seems pretty... Here's the thing. Alastor seems pretty OP. So Husker has revealed that somebody might be controlling Alastor, which he's not happy about. So interesting how that might work. We don't know any details about that. We still don't know where Lilith is. We've met Lucifer at this point. And we do know that Vaggy's identity as a former angel is now known by Charlie, which I said this last episode, but I'm like, I'm not worried about that. Charlie is like the most understanding person in the world, and even if she's mad at Vaggy for holding that information from her, even if she gets mad at her for a minute, we know how this song and dance goes. They're going to sing a song about it, and then they're going to make out and make up. Like, that's just how it's going to be. And it's just kind of like, okay, let's get that on the way. Let's get that out of the way. But as for anything else, I don't know exactly how this is going to go down. I don't know how time is going to pass, if we're going to get to the extermination this season, or if they're going to be prepping for it, and then we're going to close off, and then it's going to be like right before the extermination happens. I don't know. Emily, who is one of the seraphims we met last episode, seems very much against it, but her idol, it's not her mom, Sarah, seems to think that it's the only way that things can go through. So I don't know. The only comment I wanted to talk about was from Geen, and Geen talked about how, yeah, Alastor's a cannibal. And I didn't realize this aspect about it because we see Alastor's eaten people before, but also Alastor eating the deer. He's a deer, so it's all like, it's that cannibalism on two fronts. So I think that's interesting. Alastor is the one character to me that I'm like, I don't think he ever started out with like the sympathetic backstory, and I kind of don't want him to have a sympathetic backstory. Here's my thing. Angel Dust, yeah. Angel Dust having the sympathetic backstory with the toxicity and how he's had to deal with SA and everything with Valentino. Like, we want to connect and root for Angel Dust, and we care about him. And the series has done a really good job of making that a thing. Sir Pinchus, he seems like a little precious cinnamon bun. I love him. And he just seems like maybe he just didn't have a friend, and he just needed some good people in his life, and it just didn't happen, and things didn't just work out for him. But he's got a good heart deep down inside underneath that little snake skin. Like, I like Sir Pinchus. He's very sympathetic and relatable. Husker is like super consensual, and even though he's rough around the edges and gruff, you can kind of relate to him, and he's sold his soul to Alastor, so it makes him kind of even more sympathetic. And then Nifty's just nifty. But bless her. But Alastor's like the one character that he just is kind of unapologetically evil, and he's just like neutral evil. Or like, yeah, he's just evil, and that's all there is to it. And so, but I feel like you need to have characters like that are just, they're just kind of chaotic neutral or chaotic evil, whatever, and that's just how they are. And there's nothing and it's kind of unapologetic. There's nothing to like, I don't want Alastor to suddenly have this sob story at the end of his arc, and we're like, oh, poor Alastor. I'm like, no, I don't want that. I want him to be like just an unapologetic villainous character. You can have those in a series, and people still like them as characters, even if they don't, like them as individuals. So that's my only fear, is that this series is seeming to want to make everybody in hell redeemable, and with the exception of Valentino. I guess that's where we draw the line. Valentino and Vox aren't really redeemable, so maybe Alastor falls in line with them. I just don't want this to kind of become the show where it's like, well, they're all really good guys underneath. I'm like, that's sometimes the case, but I think with Alastor, I think it's okay to have a villainous character and keep them a villainous character. And it's a character we can appreciate, but I don't think they have to give him like a sob story backstory and try to make us feel for him. I don't know. I get a little worried because he has a really good character, and I'm like, what are we going to do with that? So, I don't know. But in any case, I am excited it's the penultimate episode. I'm sad we only have one more episode to go after this, but I am curious, since they're doing a season 2, what we'll get in episodes to come. So that's exciting. But anyway, we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right in to make sure my subtitles are on. They are good. They weren't on in the last episode, and I was like, oh no. So I want to make sure they're on this week. But we're going to look at episode 7 of Hazbin Hotel, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do it to it. Ooh. I liked this episode a lot better than last episode, honestly. There's some parts that we want to talk about that I was like, okay, but I really liked this episode a lot. This is a good penultimate episode for the season. I liked it quite a bit. As far as the resolution of Vaggie and Charlie's relationship and how it goes, I do appreciate that the series had them make up this episode and it just be a thing. It was just, this happened, and a lot of the things that we as the audience kind of can tell about Charlie and Vaggie, sometimes, you know, when you're in a relationship with somebody and you second guess yourself, or you're like, well, why didn't they tell me that? Why did she keep this a secret from me? I'm glad that they did go through in detail kind of all of Charlie's concerns, because it's like, well, you know that they're going to make up, but I do like that Charlie sits down and kind of has a conversation being like, well, why am I mad at her? Why am I having problems with this? And Vaggie, you know, is more self-conscious about herself and self-loathing than really worrying about Charlie. And Charlie has to kind of go through and be like, well, what is it about this that bothers me? And why am I mad about it? It made me wonder if maybe part of Lucifer and Lilith's problems was that Lucifer couldn't rationalize or figure out what was wrong between the two of them, and that's why they split. So I'm glad that Charlie... One, I'm glad that that whole business didn't get brought up in this episode, and that wasn't a thing, being like, oh, well, your dad couldn't keep a relationship, so neither can you. I'm glad that that wasn't brought up, because it's not a true statement, and that didn't need to happen. But I also think that it's nice to see Charlie kind of being able to talk through, okay, what bothers me? Why am I concerned? And then figure out the best way to move forward from it. I really liked that. I thought that the resolution of their lovers' quarrel was handled well overall. I liked that a lot. I'm with Husker. I like the Huskers. Like, every time you go up to try to do something, we get in more problems. So what we doing? I like in this opening scene where they're all gathered around with Vaggie talking about all the things that are going on. I love all the little minute details, like how Angel Dust looks over to Husker and has his attention. Nifty's just like there. But Sir Pinchus and the little key cat, oh my god, that part was so adorable. He's just sitting there with the big eyes, just petting the cat. It's so cute. You kind of see him like looking towards the cat at first, and then the cat gets in his lap. It's really, really super cute. And Vaggie, what I like about her character is, despite everything that's happened and how she knows that Charlie's upset, she still believes in Charlie. And she still knows Charlie's doing the right thing and is trying to support her and help her. And that's so sweet. I love that a lot. I love that quite a bit. Meanwhile, oh my god, Sir Pinchus's little bubbly eyes with the cat is adorable. I like how Alastor looks none too concerned. Which, as we learn in this episode, the idea of the smile is it's a control thing. It's to make people believe that you're in control. It's to fool people. It's to keep on the up and up. It's basically a power move. And Alastor's all about a power move, as we find out this episode. He's playing the long game, which is like, oh, okay. Alastor, what I like about his character is that he is very much the antagonist, who doesn't want to say so. Now, I talked about how I didn't really want Alastor to end up being like, he's gonna, like, you know, has some secret sob story or whatever. I don't want that. I definitely don't want that. However, something I can see is that over time, as Alastor is around Charlie, he's kind of trying to form this pseudo-parental relationship with her to seem like her guide along the way, and to be like, yes, Charlie, I will guide you down the path. What it reminded me of was Game of Thrones, how Charlie is kind of like Khaleesi. She's kind of like Daenerys Targaryen. Charlie is, and she's going to be queen. And Alastor kind of reminded me of Vargas a little bit, like her mentor, to be like, I'm going to help teach you, I'm going to help show you along the way. Or maybe not even Vargas, but he's like, I'm going to help show you the different ways you can rise up through the ranks. He reminds me of the guy, he ends up getting great skill in Game of Thrones. I can't think of his name, but Alastor reminds me sort of that. Now, in Game of Thrones, that character kind of had maybe a little bit of a love interest in Charlie. Alastor's not about that at all, which our dear Hello Dolly, Rosie, points out quite literally. And Alastor's like, what are you talking about? But I definitely think that Alastor's playing the long game, where he wants to get on Charlie's good side. He's made a deal with her, and he's going to stay by her until that deal comes to fruition. So it very much has a, maybe not Game of Thrones is the best analogy. Alastor and Charlie kind of remind me a little bit of CL and Sebastian from Black Butler. Except Charlie is way more congenial than CL. Way more kind and sweet and innocent than CL ever was. But Alastor and Sebastian are very similar to one another, and they're both demons. And so, but it's kind of like a Faustian contract where they're going to stick around. But what it makes me think of is that while Sebastian is still an antagonistic character in Black Butler, which it's been a long time since I've read Black Butler or watched it, but from what I remember, Sebastian is still a very antagonistic character in that anime series, but they kind of do develop a sort of relationship with the person they've made the deal with. They do kind of in their own way, on their own terms, care about that individual. And so I feel like that will probably happen with Alastor, where he will come to care about Charlie, but still want to uphold the contract and the deal. He wants power. And he knows that Charlie's the princess of hell, so who better than to make a contract with than the woman that's going to inherit it all, right? Because he clearly isn't going to get along with Lucifer. And I think I think if anybody would terrify Alastor, it'd probably be Lilith. So he probably wants to stay away from her. But it's interesting that he goes up there to go see her. And he's just like, yes. And the two sheep are just like, they don't want him around. And he's like, back off. But it's very interesting that Alastor is just like, yeah, oh, you're just an absolute mess. There's definitely like a Mother Gothel Ursula vibe to Alastor in this scene, where he's like, don't you want to go down and talk to your friends? And, you know, after picking a fight with heaven and hell, is that any way to ask? And dooming everyone that you love? Like, he's just so sinister. And the thing about it is that Charlie kind of plays it off as being like, you're just being an asshole. And he's like, I am, but I also have an agenda. And I feel like Charlie doesn't treat Alastor as the threat that he is, because she doesn't feel threatened by him because he's not trying to hurt her. But I'm like, I feel like he's very, very sinister. He's just hiding it very well, or knows that Charlie isn't going to judge him, and he's kind of playing off of that, right? I think it's interesting that Charlie says that, she's like, how can I face them after falling so hard? And Alastor's like, well, your dad fell too, so here we go. And he kind of calls her like, you know, the apple doesn't stray far from the tree, saying that Lucifer kind of had this moment of wanting to use his power to help others, and seeing where that went and where that led him. And he's like, you know, you're kind of on the same path. I'm going to be curious to see if Lucifer interferes and says anything about all of this, or has anything to say about all this. I'm very curious about that indeed. And she's like, I came here to save them, and I just gave them more pain. The part where Alastor's just kicking his little feet on the bed is absolutely adorable. And it's little moments like Alastor's having the time of his life. He's just like, yes. He's like, I'm just as bad as the cruelest overlord in hell. And Alastor's like, are you sure about that? And she's like, maybe worse. He's like, are you sure? I love that he's just like, She's like, at least they don't go around giving false hope. I love that Alastor is just eating this up, because he knows he can read her like a book. He's like, I've never seen such a miserable display of self-loathing. And he's like, all you do is stand there smiling and you watch us struggle and fail. And he's like, yes. I like that she gets onto him for being like, all you do is watch us struggle and fail. And he's like, that's what I said I was doing at the beginning. I've not changed my tune. I love that. Like, from the pilot, Alastor's like, that's what I'm here for. I did not lie to you. I've been telling the truth the whole time. What else did you expect me to do? How can you enjoy all this suffering? And that moment where he like takes his fingers and like wraps them around her shoulders. See, that's why I like Alastor as a sinister character, because you can't predict what he's thinking, and he's a lot more layered and complex and interesting that way. And he's like, oh, well, just because you see a smile doesn't mean you know what's going on underneath. So there's that. He's like, you know, a smile is a valuable tool that you can use it to impress your friends, keep your enemies guessing. and ensures no matter what comes your way, you're the one in control. I love when he uses the microphone to like steer and do gestures and like manipulate people. I love that. That's so good. But yeah, so the question, of course, is Alastor has a control complex. He doesn't like the idea of not being in control. And that explains to a large extent why him and Vox have such a, you know, antagonistic relationship, because Vox is the new technology. It's the upgrade. It is designed to make Alastor obsolete and no longer in control. So it would make sense why Alastor hates Vox, because he's like, no, I want to be in control. I want to be top dog. You can't come in here and do that. So that all makes sense now, and why he gets mad at Husker, because he's like, are you suggesting I'm not in control? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that part's all really, really well done. And she's like, heaven refuses to listen. Even if they did, I can't prove the hotel works. I love this whole time that Alastor's just like off in the distance, looking as sinister as possible, like the shadows of him. And she's like, and he's like, Adam has an invincible army pointed at my doorstep. And she's like, I would do anything to stop him. And Alastor's like, anything you say, anything. And he's like, well, I know something you don't know. And then he's like, Alastor has been sitting on this information the entire season, being like, yes, about this whole we can destroy angels things. I want to talk to you about that. I know how we can kill the angels, just so you know. And that way you can defend yourself. They're not as indestructible as they seem. I love that he's just playing around with their plants while he's just like, oh, you know, you and your little band of misfits, you guys might be, you know, better off than you think you are. Just no big deal. Don't listen to me. And he's like, well, you say you'll do anything. And he's like, then let's make a deal. Now, this deal that he makes with her is so good. I love this. Because at first she's like, ew, I don't want to be like Husker. I don't want you to own my soul. She's like, do you want my soul? And he's like, oh, your soul? Oh, heavens, no. He's like, no, no, no. Because he knows she's not going to agree to that. He knows she's not that desperate. And also, one, he knows she would never agree to it, because why would you when it comes right out and says it? And two, she's not that desperate, and he doesn't want to probably incur the wrath of her father or mom. So he's like, I don't want to do something that drastic. He's, no, 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 no. He says, all I need from you is a favor. He's like, a favor? What's a favor between friends? He's like, yeah. And she says, I'm not going to hurt anyone for you. And he's like, oh, who's asking that? He's like, one favor. So he's like, oh, no, no, I'm not asking you to hurt anybody. Right? So he's like, no, no, no. I was like, I just want a favor. And I want to get a screenshot where he's just trying to look so innocent, right? He's like, I just want a favor at a time of my... I love when he, like, strokes the microphone. It says, at the time of my choosing. He's like, just one favor whenever I want, and where you harm no one. He's like, that's all. And in return, I'll tell you what I know. He's like, I have all this information that I could just give you, or we'll make a deal. And just, you do a favor for me if I need you to. That sounds so harmless. It sounds so... He's like, you don't have to hurt anybody. You just do me a favor when I need you to. That's all. But what that means is that she's going to have to do whatever he tells her at some point. And what she does doesn't have to harm anybody, but it's what he wants her to do. So I'm like, she could order somebody around. She could make her father do something. She could manipulate somebody. She could use her power as princess. He's like, I get a freebie to ask you to do me any favor, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to hurt anybody, but what you do could end up inadvertently hurting somebody. That's terrifying. Terrifying. And he knew the moment that she made the deal that it was gonna like be this contractual obligation. And the two little, I feel like Lucifer's gonna be pissed at the two little sheep dragons. Oh my God. I just got the screenshot of like his entire face. Like everything is like all stitched up. It's like the radio, and you see like the arm stitched and his mouth is stitched, and it's like leans up to smile and his head stitched together. That is so crazy. That design is freaky as hell. And the fact that he's a cannibal, right? But yeah, everything there made the deal. In fact, he's like, oh shit, what's happening? No. And he's like, yep, right on cue. Mm-hmm. I like that we see a little bit of Charlie, like, in her demonic side where she has her horns and her eyes change color. And then she turns back. And she's like, yeah, I made a deal, but I didn't sell my soul away. I like Alastor's like, calm down. She still owns her soul. Like, come on. It's not that big of a deal. But in that moment, Vaggie has no clue what the deal is. Now, whether Charlie tells her later or not, totally different thing. It was pretty cold when she was like, oh, why? You not going to hide that away from me too? So they have their little lovers quarrel, and Alastor leads her away. I feel like Alastor and Vaggie may one day come to terms, come to blows, because they both... Vaggie cares, obviously, about Charlie a lot. But Alastor's thing is, he's like, as long as you can't prove that I'm really harming her, you really don't have any ground to fight me. So, there we go. In any case, I also love that the egg, we finally get the egg to be revealed. That the egg is like, oh yeah, Carmine and Carmilla, she was able to kill an angel. And Vaggie's like, Serpentius, why didn't you tell us? And the best thing about it is, one, the eggs don't reveal that they got the information while Alastor was around them. So that part's never known. And two, Serpentius is like, they say weird shit all the time. How can we believe them? And then the egg says the weird shit, and Vaggie's like, fine. So I'm glad that Serpentius doesn't get in trouble, or that they don't hate Serpentius for what he does, because he didn't have a clue that it was actually real. Right? Because, I mean, if a random talking egg was like, oh yeah, the demons can kill angels, I mean, I probably wouldn't believe it either. Right? In any case, Vaggie's like, you all don't have to stay here. I'm gonna go find out from Carmilla how this goes down. You guys don't have to stay if you don't want to. But they do stay, which is so sweet. I love that they all stay, and they're fortifying the hotel. It's so cute. I love it. And Nifty's like, I've named all the stains. That one's Fred. Just ridiculous. So Cannibal Town. Of course, I love the connection of Cannibal Town. Of course, Alastor visits there a lot. I'm curious why Alastor doesn't look like all the other residents of Cannibal Town, but he also is infused with, like, the deer demon, so maybe that's why he looks a little bit different. But I also like that the lady walking the dog has a bone in its mouth, like a cannibal. It's a dog bone. What I like is that this connects back to the pilot, where Rosie seemed to be connected with Alastor, and now we're seeing more of that her and Alastor are buddies. Also, everyone in this town has like a 1920s, 1930s, like Hello Dolly vibe, which fits Alastor's aesthetic perfectly. I feel like Alastor being from the 20s and knowing all this, I'm just curious about it all. But Rosie is the go-to woman to solve all of your problems. Because everybody here in Cannibal Town has the same smile as Alastor. So I'm wondering if he was a cannibal demon like the rest of them, and then he got infused with the deer demon and became Alastor, how that works. I feel like there's a story there, but we just haven't reached it yet. But I love we get to meet Rosie, and I love her aesthetic. I would cosplay as Rosie. I know I've said cosplay as some characters in the show. I would cosplay as Rosie. You could have the grayscale skin, the black eyes. You could have the big giant hat. The only thing about some of the cosplay that I love, the designs and characters whose outfits are so, like, detailed like that, they would be, like, hot as hell. I'd be sweating through it all. Like, deodorant would be a must. It's a must in general. Don't forget it, but I'd have to like just slather on deodorant and perfumes because I'd be so sweaty underneath all those layers. But I would love to cosplay as her. It would be great. I love that she has this great relationship with Alastor, though. Like, they both have this mutual... The thing about it is, there are times where Alastor puts on the smile, and you can definitely tell that it's fake. But then there's times where he, like, squints his eyes or has, like, a little genuine, like... a genuine look in his eye, like he's glad to see somebody, and Rosie's one of those characters. You can tell he actually does have a good relationship with her. And he's like, oh, did you bring this with you? And she's like, oh, Alastor, she's much too young for you. And she's like, oh, I'm just kidding. And she's like, I know you're an ace in the hole. And he's like, oh, what now? So she knows he's asexual. She knows he's not into anybody. And he's like, yeah, but where's your manners, mister? Yeah, so I like that Alastor and her have this relationship, and she knows that he's not hitting on anybody. It's great. And so she's like, oh, the most darling, delightful, and dangerous overlord. Which is why Alastor is friends with her, because she's friends in high places. Mm-hmm. So Alastor's whole plan is to get an army of cannibals to fight against the angels by promising them that if they kill the angels, they get to eat them. Now, at the end of Charlie's song, she's like, well, now wait a minute. And I was like, girl, what'd you think how'd you think they were going to convince this army to fight for you? And you went to an army of cannibals. Of course, the tip is they're going to get to eat the angels. That's like the part of it. Now, the question, of course, is, are they actually going to eat the angels? Because in my mind, Emily, the only way I could see this working if the cannibals do actually get to eat the angels is Emily, the seraphim, who is like, Charlie, if she comes down there and sees all this, the only way I can see Emily not being mad at Charlie for seeing like the angels eaten by the cannibal demons is if the angels do something horrible. And then Emily's like, well, they kind of had it coming. So that's the only way I could see Emily not being upset and Charlie not getting into hot water with her. But she's like, why not? We'll just do this. It'll be fine. I do absolutely love the duel. I love the camaraderie, and I like the friendship of Rosie and Alastor. I think it's genius. And I think they both make such a good pair, and they kind of feed off each other. They're basically just like two friends that are just gossipers, and they're super, super strong. So the whole thing with Carmilla, I will be honest, there are parts I really like about Vaggie and Carmilla's scene. I like the whole 90 seconds, the countdown. I like all of that. I like her basically. I like finding out the reason why they can kill the angels, because she's like, we have the metal that they're weak against. And she's like, of course, I'm an arms dealer. Of course, I'd find a way to manufacture it. That part was really cool. I liked that a lot. I like the idea that's in her shoes, her little tap dancing shoes. I love the Spanish instrumentality of their song together. And I like their kind of like back and forth tap dancing and everything. I like all of that. There were two things that this scene I was kind of like, by this point, we are at this point like 10 minutes into the episode. My thing is, I don't feel like the show should force itself to have two songs. Because you knew there was going to be a song with the whole cannibals. You knew that there was going to be a song of Charlie being like, I have a dream, and how that works. And it was a cute song. I liked that song at the end. It was fine. The song between Carmilla and Vaggie, I did not like. I don't want to say it was cringy, but because that's such a cliche over the top word, but I was just kind of like, ooh, this is not, it's a little corny. It's a little corny for me. I was like, this definitely felt like a teenage bop song, not something that a 30-year-old would be playing. I was like, I don't know. And I don't think it was necessary. I feel like the song that Charlie sings is necessary because they established in the episode how she convinces people is usually by singing her song. And that ties back to the pilot. It fits her character. It makes sense that's how she convinces and persuades people, is through her gift of song. And it works like any old mob rioting song. Like I think of Kill the Beast and Beauty and the Beast, where Gaston like gets the mob together. Like anytime you have a scene like that where you're gathering up, or if you think of Corpse Bride, that movie where they get the wedding together and they get the crowd of people and they're all marching towards the upper world, like that part all makes sense. And I liked Charlie's song for that. And especially when Alastor at the end was like, we're going to eat the angels. And Charlie keeps going, now wait a minute. Like that part was really good. But Carmine and Vaggie's song, I didn't like it. I thought it was kind of corny. And I don't think it was necessary. I think you could have just had them. I think instead of trying to shoehorn in a song, I would rather have had more discussion about Carmine and her daughters and Vaggie and Charlie, and had them like come together and have a moment where Vaggie was like, look, I love Charlie. She's my girlfriend. I love her. I believe in her. And I'm trying to protect her and what she stands for. And so, and if Vaggie had been like, don't you stand for somebody? Or weren't you protecting your daughters? And then Carmine could have been like, oh yeah. And they could have had this moment. I think it could have been really, really touching and emotionally powerful. But instead they're like, let's have a song. And it's like, and it's not the best written song. And it's kind of corny and cheesy. And I was like, ugh. I did like their duel, though. I thought their duel was well done. I liked that quite a bit. But the only other thing other than the song part was Vaggie just randomly getting her wings back. I was like, usually you set something up and you have a payoff, right, show? So I'm like, if you were going to have Vaggie get her wings back, I feel like you could have made it this big moment, like when they're fighting the one angel that's with Adam, and then Vaggie saves Charlie by getting her wings back. That would have been really cool. That would have been neat. But her just randomly, like, because she sang about a girl that she loves that we know she loves. And that's kind of the whole thing with Charlie, is that Vaggie's never doubted her. Vaggie has never not believed in her. So her just magically getting her wings back because she told some random woman that's an arms dealer that she loves her, I was like, it seems a little contrived. I just didn't think. And then they just blow it off. Charlie's like, oh, you got your wings back. And she's like, yep. And that's it. And I was like, oh, why didn't she get them back sooner? She's loved Charlie for years. Why didn't she get them back sooner? I don't understand. It was just a very weird choice to have her get her just wings back randomly. And there not be an explanation. It just happens. I'm like, it could have happened a lot sooner, honestly. But whatever. So then I like that there's Susan. I like even Alastor doesn't like Susan. Definitely Susan's design's great. I love the blue feather amidst all the reds, like showing that she kind of stands out. I like that quite a bit. I also love that Alastor and Rosie are like the two catty friends that once they get together for tea and crumpets, they just like share the tea and the gossip, and they're just like, so this bitch, so that bitch, and they just have so much fun. I would watch a whole series of just Rosie and Alastor and their adventures. I would eat it up. But it was super cute. And poor Charlie, her singing doesn't work, and they have to do an intermission, and then we have the song with Carmine. I do love when Carmine's hair is down. It's really super pretty. It's nice. But yeah, I feel like you could have just had a really good animated action scene with Carmine and Vaggie. You could have just had that, and then that's all there needed to be. But here, she's like, they just have their song, and at the climax of said song, she just grows her wings back. And it's like, oh, look at that. That's it. That's all there is to it. She's like, oh, you got your wings back. That didn't take much effort. Just, there you go. And I was like, wait, what? So then Charlie has the talk with Rosie about Vaggie, and it all works out in the end. And yeah, and I like that Alice was like, just go on, kid, sing the song. They're a mob mentality. You convince the most curmudgeon-y of them, you'll convince everybody else just fine. And they're just hilarious. I love Rosie and Alastor. They're a hoot. But yeah, and she manages to convince them and this mob that they're all going to go eat people. Now, Alastor makes the comment to Rosie that Charlie is like her dad. That she, as Princess of Hell, they're like, what do they say over there? She's like her daddy, she is madly powerful. That's the thing. I think Charlie is a little bit different than her dad. I feel like maybe her dad might have let the power get to his head and he made a mistake after that. But I feel like Charlie isn't quite like that. But both of them have these big grand ideas and they kind of get obsessed with them. And they kind of like want to have them work no matter what. So that's kind of the same way. But these two, they're such I love that Alastor like spinning her around, Rosie around and everything. She's filled with potential that I could guide. That's exactly what Alastor wants. And she's like, I concur. It's so cute. The way that he looks at her. That's so sweet. She's like, I concur. Stick with her and you'll be on the winning side. Yep. I love it. We'll show heaven a fight they won't forget. Yep. So meanwhile, as they go up against the angels, we get Charlie and Vaggie like they make up. It's really cute. And she's like, oh, I got you a souvenir from Cannibal Town. And I love the idea that I love when Vaggie sees a souvenir and she's just like, oh, look at that. And she has like the serpentous little angel face. It's super cute. Meanwhile, our three guys just hanging out there with the drinking buddies thing. It's so cute. I love the friendship between Serpentious and Husker and Angel Dust. It's sweet. And then Nifty's like, and I'm here too. So yeah. Oh my gosh. I really liked this episode. I liked it quite a bit. It was a nice penultimate episode. I liked it a lot. I especially like Rosie and Alastor's relationship. They're probably... Rosie may be one of my favorite, like, minor side characters. I just think that they're pretty cool. I think they're neat. So, yeah. The question is going to be, as we prepare... They said it was, like, in less than a month. So, the question is, are we going to get the battle next episode, and it's going to just go all out? Or are we going to be setting up next episode for season 2 to have the battle go all out? That is the question. I don't know. So, in any case, I'm excited to hear your thoughts and your comments down below. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with the season finale of Hazbin Hotel. Bye.